ambassador of Ukraine.
Mr. President. Mr. President, Ukraine is appalled by the reports of mass atrocities and manhunt campaigns launched by the Syrian regime and its partners in crime. Just listen to those Syrians trapped in Aleppo who cry out, quote unquote, "We are all praying for rain." When it rains, the planes can't fly and the bombardment stops for a short while. Is it a fake, according to the Russian ambassador? People seeking refuge are flooding into the area still outside the regime control, thousands cramming onto a piece of land of about 6 square kilometers. People come with 3 or 4 children in tow, fleeing a looming carnage. The Syrian regime says that it opened a corridor for people towards a so-called safety. But local civilians prefer to face bombs and harsh conditions rather than welcoming hands of the government. The fact that the Syrian army has already killed 500,000 of their own people is indeed a big deterrent. Things could not possibly look uglier. And the worst part of it is that it's not like nobody has seen it coming or could not have stopped it. It was crystal clear from the very beginning what the Syrian regime forces and its militias will do to the residents of Aleppo once they capture the city. It was crystal clear from the very beginning that sectarian violence and slaughter is to happen. That is why in the last 2 months, members of the Council attempted twice to avert such course of events. But all of these efforts were shattered by the irresponsible position of one of the permanent members of this Council, the Russian Federation. Here we find the words of Jan Egeland straight to the point. I quote, "Syrian and Russian governments must be held responsible for atrocities committed by militias loyal to President Bashar al-Assad in Aleppo." Is it a fake too? Simply because it's not confirmed by the Russian military, who are, of course, the most trusted people in the world. Mr. President, besides unimaginable sufferings of people fleeing the ongoing onslaught in Aleppo, we also must keep in mind disturbing developments around Palmyra, where the ISIL is again trying to reassert its presence. An ugly picture emerges. While opposition forces are being persistently and mercilessly pounded with all military might assembled by Bashar al-Assad with the help of its allies, the Daesh meets close to no opposition on its way to retake Palmyra. It begs the question, what are the real priorities of Damascus and its allies? When will the same amount of dedication go into fighting ISIL forces as is expended on the opposition forces? It is clear now that both the Syrian regime and Russia have chosen to resolve the Syrian conflict militarily. I can't remember how many times my delegation has been repeating this. Instead of cessation of hostilities in Aleppo, Russia and the Syrian regime use a Grozny-style scorched earth policy. They have to face justice for their crimes and for what it is to come afterwards in terms of grave consequences of such a brutality. Words won't suffice to describe the magnitude of crime committed in Aleppo. History will be the judge, and I'm sure that the day will come when Syrian regime and its accomplices will be sitting in a different chamber under different circumstances, when they will be facing a trial for all what they have done. We call once again, I hope in a united voice, to impose a sustainable ceasefire in Aleppo to allow for safe evacuation of the vulnerable, wounded from the Aleppo rubble. We underline yet again the obligation of all parties on the ground to protect civilians and abide by international humanitarian and human rights law. Thank you, Mr. President.